Hey everyone, Pastor Chris here. I'm in the poolside chat. They've been mowing the grass for like 4 hours. So I'm like, we'll just have to deal with it. Because we're at the poolside. We've been talking a lot about the foundations, the fundamentals, what our faith is built on. And we've seen that when God shared out of his love, because he's love himself, and everything he could recreate that was perfect, we decided, because love is a choice, and the one thing he told us not to do was touch the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and we did. And when we made that choice, when we thought we knew better than God, when we thought we were equivalent to God, we broke God's divine law. And that's where sin came in. And the curse of sin overcame everything. Death by sin. But God didn't give up on us, we saw. The Old Testament, that was a sacrificial system. He made a way for us to get back to him, but we had to recognize his holiness and righteousness. And then last time we were together, we talked about the missing years, how God had to bring everything together. It's at that perfect time for Jesus, the perfect sacrifice to come into the world. And I want to go back a little bit to the Old Testament sacrificial system and why we say that God was a sacrifice. God, Jesus. Because God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, the Trinity, are one. They are all God. There is no distinction between them. But they are three, we call it the 3 in 1. 3 persons, all in one God. They're one. The best way I can explain it is the triune man. We have body, all this, soul, the you part, what makes you you, and the spirit, that eternal part that communicates with God. How God says your spirit is made alive when you come to faith in him. Otherwise it's dead in sin. But why was God the perfect sacrifice? Because in the Old Testament, when you look, it's like, I want a perfect sacrifice, a lamb without spot or blemish. The best, the firstborn, all the great stuff. But what you have to realize is that these perfect sacrifices under the sacrificial system under the Old Testament came out of a sin-stained world. Remember, the curse of sin affected everything, all of reality, all of existence. So we give the best out of this world, but it couldn't be forever because it wasn't perfect, because it came out of a sin-stained world. And when I said that God finally said enough, instead of us trying to keep the law, keep the rules, keep the holy days, keep the sacrifices, it's the if-then statement, the computer statement, if you keep my commandments, then I will bless. Where God said, let me come down. Because God was not affected by sin. He was not stained by sin, I should say. That's why we call him the perfect sacrifice. A little aside, which I don't know unless you're medical, you would know this. When a baby is conceived, remember this was a virgin birth. The blood doesn't mix. The mother's blood and the baby don't mix. The placenta, the covering of the baby, it's nourished by diffusion, basically. But it doesn't mix. The blood doesn't mix. It's a very simplistic way of describing it, but it's just the medical scientific truth. So God sent his son Jesus as what we would call the perfect sacrifice. He had to be born as a man to live a perfect life as a man, to overcome sin in this sin-stained world as a man. But he was perfect because he was God. And that's why Jesus was sent. And it comes out of the sacrificial system, which comes out of the Garden of Eden because we thought we knew better than God and broke his divine law. So, this is a short one today. Let me stop there. But this is why God, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, it is said. This is why he was born a man, but he was born sinless, born perfect. And he grew up a sinless, perfect life. Interestingly, under the Jewish system, followed the sacrifices, followed the holy days, followed the prayers. And that's what came at the fullness of time. So, that's why we say a perfect sinless sacrifice, and that's why he had to be born, because it comes out of sacrificial system. So today's Wednesday. Saturday, I'm going to talk about that sacrifice that he made, and kind of goes a little bit into communion, but you'll find out. Anyway, let's leave it there. Chew that over. Keep the questions coming. Remember, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble at FL Compass Church. Now on Instagram at FL Compass Church. Guys, have a great week. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you Saturday.